So, Michael, of course, we are reviewing The Matrix today, one of the most innovative sci-fi movies ever made. And because we are doing that, I have to read one of my favourite ever newspaper. Well, I guess this was from an email sent in by somebody to a newspaper, which is about Gary Taylor Fletcher, the footballer.
Yes.
So how does this connect to The Matrix? Well, if you know, you know, but I'll tell you anyway. So Joey wrote into his newspaper saying, "I'm sick of sports commentators saying you couldn't write a script like this. If people can write scripts about dystopian futures in which life is in fact a simulation made by sentient machines to harness humans' heat and electricity as an energy source, they can probably write ones about Gary Taylor Fletcher scoring a last-minute equaliser against Stoke."
That is a good point. If anything, when people say you couldn't write a script like this, they're often talking about incredibly formulaic events where it's, like a last-minute comeback and stuff like that. So really, the entire saying is just complete bogus.
You didn't even laugh at that. I expected you to laugh at that. But,
no, I was too busy agreeing.
Okay,
Didn't you hear the sound of my agreement?
No, you've got a great sense of humour, pal. No doubt about it. Anyway, let's get on to The Matrix.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the release of The Matrix. You said last time it was Resurrection. I don't know with what degree of confidence you said that, but from now on I'm going to call it The Matrix Resurrection by looking at The Matrix. No subtitle. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about The Matrix?
Sure thing, Michael. So, The Matrix is a 1999 science fiction action film written and directed by the Wachowskis, or Wachowskis, however you say it. It is the first installment in the Matrix film series. Of course, the best installment in the Matrix film series as well. The other two don't really. Here's the thing, when I first learned about The Matrix, I didn't even realise there were sequels because nobody talked about them. So there's of course it stars, I mean, look at the people who it stars, Michael. Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie Ann Moss, Hugo Weaving, and Joe Pantoliano. Joey
Bad
Pants.
name though. Yeah. It's like pant.
Sorry?
It's like pant, like pants.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Even though this is the second film we've done where he's a key player in the film. Yeah. So it's like we should have pointed out before.
I'm just looking, by the way, the fourth film is called The Matrix Resurrections. Okay. So it's not called Matrix Resurrections, it's The Matrix Resurrections.
Oh, wow. It's a good thing there's lots of words that start with RE, isn't it? Because they had Reloaded, Revolution, and then Resurrection.
That's what I was thinking. There was Revolution, Resistance as well. They say Resistance quite a lot in this movie. And it's
that's true, actually, yeah.
That's another one for you, Wachowskis. Get on that.
Yeah, especially seeing as I bet the Wachowskis supported Hillary Clinton. I don't know why. Just because obviously, what I was thinking about, and I'm sure you agree with this, is that Trump was like the Matrix because of how bad he was, and Hillary Clinton was like Morpheus. She was there to try and take us out of it and lead us into a better world to overcome the horrors of America. That's kind of what I was thinking. I know it was a bit obvious of a point to make, but I just thought it had to be made.
Yes, fucking Trump was like, he
was Agent Smith. Yeah.
Yeah, and Hillary was like Lawrence Fishburne. Okay, well that's good. Thank you for giving us...
Of course, Joe Biden's more like Lawrence Fishburne because of how black he is.
Anyway, the release date was March the 31st, 1999. I want Obama be Morpheus and then like Neo be Hillary. Anyway, sorry.
Whoa, that's racist, dude.
June the 11th, 1999 in the United States. In the United Kingdom. So yeah. Why was it released at the end of March and at the beginning of June? That's a big gap. I don't like that. Thankfully, shit like that doesn't happen anymore, and the UK gets it at the same time as America. But yeah, that would have been awful back in the day. So, Michael, can you guess the budget for The Matrix?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of hard to say because on the one hand, it's like this film has a lot going on in it. On the other hand, it's not as if like I don't know, like the Wachowskis, this is the film they're famous for. So I'm like, how much money did they, like they didn't have much clout to get a huge budget.
The thing is they did get their clout because they had this script originally, and then what happened was they wrote a movie. Let me see if I can find it here. So the Wachowskis directed another movie, Bound. That was it. They directed Bound, and that became a critical success. And then they could then direct The Matrix after.
Okay, so that sounds like in that case they'll probably. So that makes me think it's more of a budget because it's like they did it so they could get money. 40 million.
63.
Oh wow, that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're underestimating the amount of stars in this movie, Michael. You know, like Lawrence Fishburne, Keanu Reeves, you know, big names here. Anyway, the box office, Michael. Can you tell me how much this made?
Well, a lot, I guess. You would think so. I mean, I feel like if I guess high and then it's wrong, then it's still more excusable because. But I know, so I'm just going to say it made 500 million.
Oh, that's a very good guess. Very good guess. It's 466.
Okay, because I was actually worried it would have made like 700 million or something, and then you would like flip your lid because you're like, you said you were going to guess high. Like I know 700 million would be a lot, but like it wouldn't be impossible that it would have made that much. Yeah,
no, you did very well. But anyway, Michael, The Matrix, obviously, as you can tell, like a massive financial success. It won 4 Academy Awards, unsurprisingly. Have a guess what
special effects, and maybe something for sound?
Yes. Best sound and best sound editing and best film editing, which, you know, you should have really put as well, considering, you know, the bullet time thing. And best visual effects, naturally, yes, they won best visual effects, so yes.
Oh, yeah, because also this was back, I think, when... Because I know for a while, I think they've now got rid of it again. They used to have, like, almost 2 separate things for visual effects or something. I might be wrong about that.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Anyway, so the film is considered to be among the best sci-fi films of all time and was added to the National Film Registry for preservation in 2012. So, Michael, did you like The Matrix?
Well, yes, I did like it. I don't know if I loved it. I think it's a good action film. The thing is, it kind of is, in some sense, as we're going to get into very quickly, kind of doing 2 things at once. It's sort of got the action film element, but then also, and again, I am putting the cart a little bit before the horse here, but it's also got the whole thing of like criticism of the society and that kind of dystopian, cynical view that they had in the late 1990s. And it's almost like, in a way, because it does both of those things at once, I kind of felt like it didn't do either of those things as well as it could, which I'll try and substantiate that when we get into. Like I say, I don't want to put the cart before the horse too much. But yeah, I still liked it. I didn't like come away like, wow, that's my opinion.
Yeah, here's the thing, like, genuinely, when you rewatch it, you're reminded how great a movie this is. But there are some areas which stop it from being amazing. But I do think it's still a great movie. It is it's really, really good. And I think, obviously, we'll criticize some stuff about it, but I'm going to gush about this movie quite a bit because there are some things I absolutely love. And, you know, I don't think, really, Michael, we've reviewed a lot of good movies recently.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, actually, that reminds me. I want to make sure that even though I already know what the movie is we're reviewing next week, I want to make sure I've got the list of all the movies we've reviewed.
Oh, you know what movie we're reviewing next week?
Yeah, I know.
You know what we're doing next time.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. And yet the people listening are going to have to wait until the end of the video. So they're going to have to watch until the end. I tell you what, guys, if you watch this right now, why don't you hit that like button and that subscribe button?
Yeah, so the last movie we reviewed, which got a 9 out of 10 from me, was Citizen Kane back in the middle of September. So it's been quite a while. JFK got an 8 out of 10 for me, but yeah, this is one of those movies which is like really good, really, really good. I enjoyed myself a lot watching it, which is like, oh, this is quite nice. This is nice to have. Anyway, Michael, how many nitpicks do you have?
I've got 2.
Yeah, I've got 2 as well. So you go first.
Okay, both of mine are pretty, so the first one's like a very broad one, but it doesn't really explain how energy is introduced to the system. Like, they have this whole thing about human beings being batteries, and they talk about how, the only reason I brought this up is because they explicitly mention how dead people are ground up so they can be fed to live people. But I was thinking to myself, well, the thing is, obviously, that kind of makes sense in recycling, but obviously in any system, any closed system, you inevitably lose energy because of the movement. So it's a very I don't know, yeah. The thing is, it's just like they went to the effort of like explaining that aspect, but you would have thought they'd be like, and this is how the people are kept alive. Because ultimately, yeah, human beings need energy to be kept alive. So the idea of keeping humans as batteries, it's like, well, we still have to get the energy to keep the humans alive. So yeah, minor. And then this is like, it's kind of an obvious one, and you can almost say it's not a nitpick because it's almost like the point, maybe, but I don't know. The fact that Trinity obviously makes Neo dying come true by talking, or like, so obviously she stops him and she's like, I've got something to say, but I know that if I say it, it might come true, like all of that. And it's like, seems kind of obvious. I mean, the bizarre thing is, if she's had this dream that Neo's going to die, why doesn't she just make Neo go first? It's kind of like, if she's like, I don't want Neo to die, but I've been told Neo's going to die, I'm going to do everything I can like you think her logic would be, I'm going to try and make sure Neo doesn't die. So she's like, I'm going to let Neo go first, all that kind of stuff. But she seems to, if anything, actively go out of her way to facilitate Neo dying. Which is a bit strange.
Bit at the end. Yeah, it ain't great. But anyway, so my nitpicks are you talked about the actual concept of the Matrix in your nitpick, which
the thing is, the reason why is because it's like the most tiny thing. Like, I don't really care how it is that the Matrix is sustained in like electronically.
I get what you mean. Yeah, but anyway, I've had a couple of those. I guess you could call them nitpicks when discussing the Matrix, but I don't know, because it's like the central concept of the movie. I think it's a bit more than nitpicks. But anyway, so my first one, Neo, when he gets in the car under the bridge, the rain looks insanely fake. Just falling on the car. It's only falling on the car, nothing else. It's just like, that's pretty badly done. Next nitpick. It's actually the 22nd century, Michael, if you didn't know. Yeah, the tech that they use in the real world in the 22nd century is, floppy disks.
That's a good point, yeah.
What's up with that, eh?
Yeah, maybe they just found, maybe they had to go on a salvaging mission and the only thing they could find was floppy disks.
Yeah, I do get frustrated by that. It's like you can see where the world's going. Do you really think people would still have to input things into computers? Like for any sci-fi thing, it's like, come on. Like it just, is it not like, does your imagination not stretch to, oh yeah, you don't need to do that, it's already loaded up in the computer. But anyway, so let's go onto the plot, Michael. So we're not going to talk about the concept because the concept basically is so large that we need to discuss it within the movie. Yeah. So the concept takes up a whole bunch of time in the movie, and I think it is introduced really well and effectively. But anyway, we'll get into that. So basically, the plot is very simple, like you said. Neo is introduced to the Matrix, then someone in his group obviously betrays him. Morpheus is kidnapped, and then Neo needs to get him back, and he realizes he is the one as he does it as well. So there we go. That's it. Pretty simple. And to be honest, you had to have the plot pretty simple, since all the stuff that's introduced, you couldn't make it that complicated, could you?
No, yeah, exactly. That's kind of the thing. Like, you go back and you think about this film and you're like, yeah, this, it's a very, it's not as if there's loads and loads of intrigue to the plot itself, because it's so contingent on just the world. And yeah, I pretty much agree with you, because that's kind of what we were talking about when we talk about what it is that we want to discuss. The reality is that you can go through the plot really simply, and to be honest, literally what you just did then it basically covers it. It's they go into the Matrix. How many times do they go into the Matrix? Is it just twice, or no? Wait.
Neo goes in twice, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He goes in obviously in the middle of the movie and then at the end. But of course, he's in it at the start too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just how it is.
So it's kind of it's sort of crazy, because it's really, within that context, it's just very big. Well, yeah, obviously there's the opening, then there's all of the training stuff. They go in for the first time, the whole betrayal thing happens, and then they realize they've got to go in to rescue Morpheus, and boom. Then after that, it is that simple.
It is that simple, but again, it needs to be that simple, and the character arcs, they can work effectively within that simple plot with Neo, of course, and the whole narrative with the Matrix. Yeah, it's fine. It's sometimes a simple plot is effective, and that is, I think, the case here. But anyway, I'll just read the Wikipedia plot summary. So it says, it depicts a dystopian future in which humanity is unknowingly trapped inside a simulated reality, the Matrix, which intelligent machines have created to distract humans while using their bodies as an energy source. When computer programmer Thomas Anderson, under the hacker alias Neo, uncovers the truth, he is drawn into a rebellion against the machines, along with other people who have been freed from the Matrix. So, there we have it. There we go. Very, very simple. Well, that's the thing. It's not very simple. If we ignore the concept of the Matrix, it is. But anyway, let's get.
To be fair, actually, credit to this film. You mentioned the hacker, and in my brain, I remembered, of course, the classic, the hacker known as 4chan. Credit to this film for being in the 1990s, mentioning hackers and not totally embarrassing itself, because it was very rare for films to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because there's not of course, Neo. The idea, of course, at the end of the movie is Neo becomes this super hacker. He's effectively
It just sounds like so cringe when, like, it's kind of just like the idea of, like, because of what most of these films are like the idea of saying, like, super hacker, it just makes me imagine, like, I don't know, some guy who presumably rides a skateboard to work and who, like, I don't know, listens to rock or something, is like typing really fast, and he's like got 10 computer screens open at once. He's like, I'm the super hacker.
But they never say it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well.
That's the thing. Though, yeah, exactly.
But that's the basically what he is.
Yeah.
Like, because he's like he's in a video game and he's just changing the rules, and only he can do that. And of course, the AI are constrained by the reality of the game, the programming. But he's not. So that's why he's this super hacker. But they don't say that. And again, this is back in the 1990s when hacking was kind of cool. It's like, oh, you're a hacker. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't forget the classic movie The Net, or indeed Hackers. Yeah, hacking had a different rep back in the 1990s. But anyway, Neo. Let's start, Michael. Let's start with the script. So, I love this start. Let's not talk about Neo first. Let's talk about, because that Neo doesn't start the movie. We have a lot of intrigue with an abandoned hotel in a major city. A police squad car corners Trinity, who overpowers them with superhuman abilities. She flees, pursued by the police and a group of suited agents capable of similar superhuman feats. She answers a ringing public telephone and vanishes. A great start. And, of course, we see the visual camera technique too. And, why do all agents look the same? I think it does a really good job of introducing a lot of intrigue, even if you actually think about the scene. Wasn't really that necessary. She didn't need to be in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Check on Neo. But you know what? I like it anyway. It's good.
No, yeah, I actually do really agree. I really think the introduction is very strong. It feels like almost like one of those weird kind of like introductions you get sometimes, like cold opens you often get in some serialized films, like crime things and stuff, where it's like the opening scene is like the scene that's not directly related to all the main characters. Obviously, the main characters in a sense doesn't exactly apply, but it like just sets up the story in a way you're like, oh, I want to see what happens next. Like, I don't know, some guy's in a hospital and then suddenly he sees somebody who's been murdered and that sets it up. I really like just you watching it, and that aspect of the amount of things it introduced, which you're just like, oh, this needs some explaining, really works. It makes it satisfying when you see it all kind of paid off and explained later on.
Yeah. Let's talk about the visual effects now, Michael, because of course I think that scene of Trinity, jumping and of course the camera spinning around, that even though it happens in like the first 2 minutes, I think that is the scene which everybody, because that's the thing, like it happens a couple of other times, but that is the scene where everybody points to. It's like, oh, that's incredible. Like when people talk about bullet time, that's what it's called. When people talk about bullet time, that is what they point to. Which again, you get so much out of just the introductory scene. But anyway, bullet time. Let's talk about that, Michael. So the film is known for popularizing a visual effect known as bullet time, which allows a shot to progress in slow motion while the camera appears to move through the scene at normal speed. Bullet time has been described as a visual analogy for privileged moments of consciousness within the Matrix. And throughout the film, the effect is used to illustrate characters' exertion of control over time and space. The Wachowskis first imagined an action sequence that slowed time while the cameras pivoted rapidly around the subjects and proposed the effect in their screenplay for the film. When John Greta read the script, he pleaded with an effects producer at Mass Illusion to let him work on the project and create a prototype that led him to becoming the film's visual effects supervisor. The bullet time effect was created for the film. A scene would be computer modelled to decide the positioning of physical cameras. Then the actor provided their performance in a chroma key setup while the cameras were fired in rapid succession with fractions of a second delay between each shot. The result was combined. The result was combined with CGI backgrounds to create the final effect. I remember seeing a documentary on how they did it. Like this was a few years ago, and of course you see all the cameras lined up behind.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow. That's the thing. Of course, you need the CGI as well, but it's quite a simple technique if you think about it. It's relatively simple, but you need, of course, precision timing. But if you can nail the precision timing, it can produce incredible results for how simple it is.
And also, I mean, I would assume like part of it is like, I assume that back in the 1990s, just the amount of data would still be like a thing that made things cost money. Like, obviously, I mean, today, for example, there's lots of super slow motion channels on YouTube, and I have it on the record on good authority that these super slow motion cameras cost tens of thousands of pounds just because of how sophisticated the technology needs to be. And that's obviously today. So obviously I don't think this would have needed to be quite as slow motion as that. Like we're talking about like hundreds of thousands of frames a second. But yeah, I guess there was probably like a significant financial constraint. I do know actually that I remember hearing this. They use this exact same technique in BBC's Sherlock, and it's literally in just like a completely pointless random scene, like a scene that like
that was from freaking H Bomber guy.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I saw that video on Sherlock. Yeah, I love that video on Sherlock.
It is actually really it's really funny because I don't know about you, but I've actually never seen Sherlock.
Oh no, I had seen every episode, and then I remember I watched the last season, and it was just so disappointing. And then he went through, and that's the thing. There was a few episodes. I remember one of them. One of the episodes he doesn't even really cover. One of the episodes he doesn't cover in his review, which got me really annoyed. Where Sherlock literally just shoots someone at the end, and it's just like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And it's like, but he's right. It wasn't really that great beforehand, although there were some fun moments. But anyway, the thing is with that Sherlock shot, it's just pointless. It's just let's do it because we can. This, of course, it's not just do it because we can. Like we said, it's it shows the character's exertion of control over time and space, and I couldn't have put it better myself.
No, yeah, exactly. That's it. It's kind of like, I mean, it's like a thing which you obviously see in some other instances where like people talk about in that moment where it's like everything suddenly becomes really intense, like time slows down. But yeah, I guess obviously in this there's an extra level to it. It's not just like the experience of time slowing down. It's like you're actually causing it. So yeah, I like it. It works. It's good.
Yeah, no, it is good. And again, it's like there's so many innovative things in this movie, and even the way they shoot the action scenes with bullet time, like that's just. It's again like if that wasn't in the movie, it would still be one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. Well, they add in this incredibly, I'm going to use that word again, innovative camera technique. It's crazy. Anyway, so Neo next, Michael. Let's talk about him. Just an average guy, who is some guy's savior, their own personal Jesus. Did you get that?
Yes.
Did you get that? When some guy says that to him,
Mm.
who is kind of just meandering through life in a dead-end job, kind of like the person who may be watching this movie. He lives alone and spends all his time at his computer all day and is a hacker, and he's looking for something, an answer. Maybe just like the person watching this movie, he's special and different. Like the rules don't apply to him. You see, he's so cool as well, like he's so... everything about him is just the perfect for a protagonist in a sci-fi movie, Michael. Or a fantasy movie, the most protagonist ever, just an everyman on the surface, but inside there's something special and unique about him, and of course, he's actually Jesus Christ. But yeah, that's the thing. With this character, he doesn't really have a character, does he? Yeah,
he's pretty.
But do you agree? He's the most protagonist ever.
Bit of an audience surrogate, and no, yeah, I do agree. Like, there's nothing. I think that's it. You kind of like don't really get invested. And to be honest, it's kind of like, I hate to say it, but Keanu Reeves, is he actually a good actor? Because, you think about the films he starred in, he basically usually he's either played like just a comedic idiot or just somebody who like doesn't talk at all or is like very kind of stoic all the time, which obviously is more what he's playing in this film, which is like, this is impossible. How can this be?
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously in terms of his actual attributes as a character, yeah, definitely very. There's nothing really to distinguish him from anybody else in any other protagonist. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing. Like he's Keanu Reeves, and Keanu Reeves has got this natural charisma to him, I guess. But again, his acting isn't great. There are some not so great moments of acting in this movie. But yeah, the point of this is that he's just Neo. He's just like if you were to write like the bare bones protagonist for an action fan, like it's like a template for a protagonist in a fantasy movie or sci-fi movie. Just absolutely perfect in that. But anyway, so he works a dead end job, Michael, like I mentioned, and we need to talk about this theme in the late 90s. Similar theme in like American Beauty and Office Space and Fight Club. Nobody wanted to work in these offices, man. They were so boring. These dead end jobs that they were soul sucking. And that's not who Neo really is. Like, he's, he can't keep Neo locked up in this cubicle. There's got to be something more to life, than sitting in this little, 6 square feet like box.
Prison. It's a prison. That's what it is. This is like it's like that prison, meme of I can't even remember. It's like a SpongeBob thing where it's like you gotta get out and live the world, and then it's just like a guy who just like, it just shows a guy like quick cuts between him like in his car, in the office, and then in the lounge, and it just like is on repeat, and it's like hashtag relatable. Yeah, very much. I mean, obviously, this seems like it would be a good moment to make explicit what I already kind of touched on, which is like the way this film is a lot like. In fact, sorry, you already mentioned it with Office Space, didn't you? Yeah, the fact that this film is very much touching on this dissatisfaction with capitalism. I mean, it's kind of interesting because it's not necessarily like. I guess. Well, this is. I said how I don't know that this film. Basically, my theory is I don't think this film is as good as films like American Beauty or Office Space at actually touching on this point, simply because it doesn't like it's kind of just the premise in a way. So I don't think, obviously this film is often included with, and also sorry, like Fight Club and stuff like that. This film is often included with those films, but obviously it's worth noting that those films spend, I think, a lot more time actually exploring
Yes,
in a deeper
that's a good
sense
word.
the situation they're in of like working in a cubicle. This is very kind of surface level. It's just, oh, he's in a cubicle, it's boring. And to be honest, it's almost like he's already like a super hacker guy anyway, so it's a bit like if Kevin Spacey was a super. Well, I don't want to know what he'd be bloody doing if he were a hacker. I'll tell you what he'd be buying from Neo for £2,000 on his little floppy disk, because Kevin Spacey's tendencies. But no, the point is, if Kevin Spacey were a hacker in the film, if what's his name, Lester Burnham, is that his name? If he were a hacker, that would be like, that's kind of the thing that Lester Burnham would be doing at the end of the film. It would be like Lester Burnham's the boring old guy who goes to work, and then at the end of it, he's like a hacker. The thing is, in this film, Neo's already a hacker, so.
Yeah, but
it's kind of like he's already exploring
it's
a
the
bit.
contrast. It's the contrast between what he wants to be.
He's been living a double
and
life.
what like he can't explore fully like who he is as a person. He's been held back. And that's the I love. Well, you mentioned like anti-capitalist or messages to do with capitalism, and of course they're mostly anti-capitalist in the movies in the late 1990s. Are they actually? I've been thinking, are they actually anti-capitalist? Because they're not really. They're they're like the boomer generation, not liking that they're in offices all day and they find it boring. Like right now, millennials, Gen Z, they would kill to have the stability that those boomers had in those office jobs in the 1990s.
Bloody boomers with their participation trophies. They think they should get everything just for showing up to work. Well, guess what? The reality is, grow up, sunshine. Sometimes you just work a shitty job. Get over it, stupid boomers.
I know, but and so many people would kill for a shitty job like they had. So, God, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So that's the case with Neo, obviously. But as you say, it's not really explored a lot. Maybe it's just used for the contrast between that and Average Day and The Matrix. But yeah, you can read. So there are some anti-capitalist messages there. If you want to read into it, if you do, like, obviously, you are a slave, you're born in a prison. That's very, you would expect to hear that rhetoric. Which one's the correct pronunciation?
Honestly, I have no idea. I think.
Okay, let's not.
I think they're both right. It's like a neither thing, isn't it?
Okay, you would expect to hear that from some, I don't know, fucking left-wing agitator. Saying, you're slaves, to capitalism. And, that concept, of course, of wage slavery does exist, particularly in, for instance, America. So, it's not the most inaccurate thing. And are you going to read that into, that's the thing, does the whole Matrix idea actually, is it an allegory for something? Or is it just a really cool concept? And that, of course, you can talk about capitalism with that as well. Are they actually saying, the Wachowskis got like, everybody's like this. Everybody's just slaves, in this world. The system built to keep us under control. And, if you think about Cypher, what does he want to do, Michael?
He wants to go back in.
Yeah, but what does he want to do?
He wants a nice job.
He wants to be an actor, and he says something beforehand. I'm trying to he says he wants to be rich. That's what he says.
Okay, yeah.
He says he wants to be rich, and of course, if he's rich, well, it's not really real, is it?
No, yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like,
yeah, so you can read into like this anti-capitalist messaging if you would like to, but at the end of the day, it's very bare bones there. There's not a lot there, to be honest, and yeah. Even the movies like we talked about Office Space, they're not. I wouldn't say they're anti-capitalist either. Again, it
is just complainy.
Yeah, boomers complaining about, having a midlife crisis and, working these boring office jobs instead of, fighting in Vietnam like the previous generation did. But yeah, that's how it is. So yeah, that it's not really anti-capitalist, and I don't think this movie is either. You could interpret it, but I don't think there's enough to interpret it, in my opinion, that way. So yeah, let's move on to Morpheus. So, basically Morpheus, he's guiding Neo out of his office, and he knows where everything is. Again, it's just so intriguing.
Pretty cool.
How does he know where everything is? Then I love that he just turns himself in because he doesn't believe yet. He doesn't know fully, what's happening. I'm talking about when Neo turns himself into.
Yeah, he's like, because he doesn't want to go on the scaffolding.
Yeah,
like a coward.
That's a great touch. That is like he's not ready to fully commit, and it makes his character. I think it makes his character more believable, and it's great. I like that concept. So of course he's being interrogated by Hugo Weaving, and yeah, Hugo Weaving in this movie is just so good.
Like, yeah, he's pretty intimidating.
He is, and he's incredible in the scene. He's incredible in the movie. He is in his element. So much better than his boring Lord of the Rings character.
That is true, yeah. But also, I mean, the thing is, did you ever think about the fact, I only just thought about it now, Neo wants his phone call, which is funny because obviously a phone call is how you get out of the Matrix. So clearly the solution, this shows that lawyers are how you get out of the Matrix. Because obviously he wanted his phone call so he could call his lawyer because he was held in police custody.
Yeah, no, I guess you could make that connection as well, yeah. So, I love it when obviously Neo's mouth closes because things have been a bit weird up until then, but then this freakish thing happens, and then of course an insect crawls into him. And
yeah, that's very kind of wincy. It's like, imagine something burrowing into your belly button.
But it's so like weird. Yeah. All of a sudden things just go like up, yes, to a new level.
It jumped up a notch.
I know it did. It jumped up a notch, and it was unexpected. It was great. And then again, he wakes up. It's like, is it a dream? There's just so much intrigue. Like, what is going on? What is real? And of course, he gets in this car with fucking Trinity, and even more intrigue happens. A gun is pointing at his face, and it's to protect the people in the car from him, Michael, from him. Then this bug is actually in his chest, and I'm guessing that Neo thought it was a dream, and maybe the audience thought it was a dream, but it obviously wasn't. And again, a great concept there. Something crazy happens to him, and then he wakes up, and then I think, oh, that must be a dream. Surely it must be a dream, but it's not. I do like that. That's very clever. What do you think?
No, yeah. I also really like the way they introduced it. I thought it was thoroughly entertaining, and like ultimately, yeah. I mean, it's pretty much just continuing on the whole thing. It's like, and I guess now there is like actually the fact of like, okay, we're getting answers, so it's kind of building up, which is nice.
Yeah, no, but it does build up really well, and of course, there are some issues with it though, because the bug didn't really need to be alive. Point number one, if it's a tracker. But point number two, the agents tapped the phone, so why didn't they go to the bridge? That's what I thought. Like Morpheus said, I need to be quick because this phone is tapped. But surely it's not a matter of time, Michael. Yeah. Surely it's like, it's tapped or it's not. They can hear you or they can't. It's
maybe
like,
it kind of takes a while to, maybe it's a bit like, how, and a lot of people don't know this. Well, I say a lot of people know this. You know how whenever you call me, for some reason, the audio immediately goes through to my microphone. I have to switch it so that it goes through to my headphones instead. Maybe they've got that thing going on where it's like it connects and they just have to they've got to just fiddle with it a second.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't really, goodness me. Sorry, it's just a weird thing where it's like, it's kind of a bigger thing, which is maybe we'll just have to put a what's it called in it, a feather in it. I can't think what the term is. A tick in it, a pin in it. There we go. Thank God. Anyway, if the Matrix is like a conscious thing, how is it it can't just automatically hear everything that's said in the Matrix? That's just a weird thing, but honestly, it's a pretty big thing.
I know, but again, maybe they don't want to hear everything, because there's no point in hearing everything. But,
yeah, it's true. It could overload it.
Yeah, but naturally, of course, if you tap a phone specifically because you're worried this guy could be communicating with Morpheus, then you would
want to be able to actually listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. And again, they had the bug tracker in him, so they didn't track him at all. So it just, all of that was completely pointless.
Yeah, it was a pointless scene. I was kind of thinking that as you were continuing to talk about it. It's just, doesn't actually amount to much. Not great.
But anyway, Neo meets Morpheus, and who is this guy, Morpheus? He's Lawrence Fishburne. Again, he's so good. Lawrence Fishburne, he's incredible. You have these amazing performances from Hugo Weaving and Lawrence Fishburne. Basically everyone apart from Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
There is something, when he says there is something wrong with the world, like a splinter in your mind. I love that phrase. And of course, they discuss the Matrix, and Neo has been investigating the Matrix because he knows that there is something off about being alive. Again, it's just the intrigue is incredible. And then, of course, Morpheus presents Neo with the red pill and the blue pill.
Yeah, and that's when Neo becomes an online alt-right anti-feminist because he takes the red pill.
He does take the red pill. Yeah. Do you want to check up on that subreddit, Michael? Red pill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Is it still going? Is it still on Reddit?
That's actually a good point. Yeah, you would have thought they'd have got rid of it, but maybe they don't.
Yeah, they might. You check and I'll tell you about what I think of this scene. So obviously, a lot hasn't aged well because of everything that's now associated with it, but it is a magnificent concept. It truly is. I'm saying I'm praising a lot of concepts in this movie, but that has to be the case, and this is another one. Of course, you now have phrases like the black pill and the white pill. When you've been black pilled. I've said that phrase before. Like when the fucking leaks came out that the Labour Party intentionally sabotaged themselves in 2017 to lose the election. People in the party office.
Exactly. Yeah,
that was like it was a black pill moment. I was like, oh, holy fuck.
Yeah, that's the thing. If anything, we kind of stolen this language from at this point. It's kind of I feel like the whole pill language. I mean, admittedly, the red pill, but definitely black pill. That's something I use a lot.
Yeah, I know, but it's that's why it's such a great concept. And of course, when Neo is in Morpheus's glasses, and the shot is you see that shot of him in Morpheus's glasses. It's such a great shot, and it's telling him about it. It's so good and it's so intense and perfect. And he says, "Take the what?"
Hold on a minute, Luke. I was going through it. I was seeing which ones would be good, and it was one I couldn't help. Okay, you ready for this? This is the genuine title.
So it's still up. The
yeah, it's still up. Yeah. Right. So this is the I sorted by the top of this month. So the number 6 top post is.
Go on.
How to transform your dribble dork dick into a commanding cum cannon.
No, that's got to be satire.
I don't know.
It's got to be satire. It's got to be saying it ironically. Either it's one of those two things. There's no way that's genuine, unironic from the heart. But it's funny nonetheless. But yeah, I just wanted to know the subreddit's up. So I'm glad it is. Anyway, I'm not glad it is. I mean, who cares? At the end
to be fair, at this point they've been quarantined. I don't know if you know what that means in Reddit terminology.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah.
What do you mean? I don't know what.
Sorry, it's just I thought maybe you were more of a Twitter person.
But I mean, I can understand the concept of quarantine, even if I was a Twitter person. What do you think we've been doing for the last couple of years, Michael? You fucking
That's
idiot.
a good point, actually. Yeah.
Anyway, so Morpheus says, "Take the red pill. See how deep the rabbit hole goes." And I look at that and I think it's easy to see how this movie became associated with conspiracy theories, because it is a great concept to explain it. Take the red pill. On any issue which could be a conspiracy theory. And we'll get into that later when talking about how deep this movie actually is. But overall, the setup to the reveal of the Matrix with all the intrigue is great. It is a fantastic premise, of course, the Matrix, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, and we'll get onto that. But the build up to it is so good within the first 30 minutes. They had this great concept. It's okay, how do we create this build up? How do we get people invested in seeing what this Matrix actually is? And they did it so well. And that's the thing, you can have a great concept, but you can not execute the actual concept or the build-up well at all. And if the build-up hadn't been great, this movie would it won't be iconic, would it? It would be oh wow, that is a crazy sci-fi concept, but the build-up it makes the movie in so many ways. Because what do you think is the most iconic scene from this movie, Michael?
I think there are several contenders. I'll give you 3, which I think. Well, I think. No,
I asked you for the most.
Oh, fine. Okay. Well, for me, I would say probably the most iconic would be the red pill, blue pill scene.
I see that's the thing. I would agree, and that's the thing. That's nothing to do with the actual Matrix, is it? Nothing to do with the actual. That's just the setup to it. So that shows how brilliant a movie this is when the setup is so fantastic that scene is probably the most iconic in the movie, ahead of this whole Matrix thing. So yeah, you agree with that, Michael? It's a fantastic setup.
Yeah, no, yeah, I do actually agree that it handles the setup really well. Ultimately, yeah. Also, I mean, I like the whole. Sorry, no, we didn't kind of mention this, but I like the whole follow the white rabbit thing because it's symbolism. But yeah, I do like that idea of let's see the whole like thing of going down the rabbit hole. It's good.
Yeah, because you didn't need to have the red pill, blue pill thing at all. You didn't need to have it at all. The movie could have worked without it, but they put it in, and it's a magnificent concept, like I said. So anyway, let's get into the reveal, Michael. So, I mean, I don't know how it works in terms of him waking himself up in the real world, but I'm okay with that. Whatever fucking tech they use, I don't care. So,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, Neo takes the red pill, and his reality begins to distort, and he soon awakens in a liquid-filled pod among countless others, containing other humans. And I put, fuck me, this is a great scene. Like, truly great, like, completely unexpected. Like, if you've watched this movie for the first time, there is no way you're expecting what you see when Neo wakes up in the real world. Like, who the fuck would expect that? And, you have the first shot you see is a POV shot, obviously. Great idea. And he's in this tub of goo with wires sticking into him. It's incredible. Like, I remember when I saw this scene for the first time, my mind was blown, like, seeing all this, like, alien tech and all the other countless humans there. It was just crazy. Like, not what you would expect at all. And
yeah, I agree. It's very jarring.
Incredible reveal. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree that like the jarring nature of how it's introduced, where it's kind of just like you just see him in the water, and it was kind of like the transition was kind of interesting, like of him like kind of breaking out of a little I don't know plasma. That's not really what I'm looking for. What's that thing? Placenta. That's the word I was looking for. Kind of breaking out of it, and the kind of intensity of realizing where he was. It was good, and I did like it. And obviously, you have, it's, mostly I really did like kind of just the shock of just like initially you see it and it's like, boom. And it's like, you're really like, wow, he's really in a weird, and like, to be honest, like the way the scene even continues, him getting like sucked down the water thing, you're like, oh boy, he's really having a rough time.
Yeah, he wasn't having a good day. I think that's fair to say. Or was he having a great day because he was finally awoken? But yeah, that's the thing. The reveal scene of the real world, it could not have been any better, I think. Like, they absolutely nailed this reveal, this mind-blowing reveal. And I don't know, tell me, when you watched it for the first time, Michael, were you like, whoa, this is incredible?
You know what? I can't really remember when I watched this film for the first time that well, actually.
Well, I can. Because I remember that scene specifically. I was like, gee, that's such a great imagination right there to have that. And it's the way it's revealed and shot is so good. So sorry,
I'm afraid to just report that I don't really remember like having this an intense reaction, but obviously I still recognize this good scene.
It had its intended effect on me, so I'll say fair play to the Wachowskis for that, because they definitely wanted to like shock people, and I did. That worked on me, so fair play. 10 out of 10 for that. And of course, then we get into the reveal of the actual Matrix, where Neo has been quote-unquote living for his life. Morpheus wakes him up and then reveals to him what the Matrix actually is. In the early 21st century, a war broke out between humanity and intelligent machines after humans blocked the machines' access to solar energy. That's something we definitely do. The machines responded by capturing humans and harvesting their bioelectric power, while keeping their minds pacified in the Matrix, a shared simulated reality modelled after the world as it was in 1999. I love how this scene again is delivered, by the way, in the white room. Not a room, just in this white background, with them looking at all the stuff in an old TV. Again, another iconic scene that captures your attention. You've seen so much crazy stuff, and then just a white room. It's beautiful, beautiful. And of course, then there's the shots of the babies and the fields and fields of them, Neo. And it's so eerie. It's like a horror movie. Again, it's breathtaking, really. I love it so much.
The one thing I never really understood is that it seems like they have the shot of like all the stuff, and it seems like Neo and Morpheus are in like a pit, so Neo wouldn't actually be able to see it. Like, I always just found that weird. They just like show the field, and then it's kind of like they're clearly lower down in the ground. It's like, wouldn't it make more sense for them to be on a hill? It's like, to be fair, that should have been a nitpick. Sorry, I was just thinking about it now, but but no, I definitely agree that I do like kind of the idea of just having it's kind of it's minimalist, It's like you go from all the stuff and it's just this one room, and it's a good way of explaining it. I guess it would kind of, you could also imagine that they've like, because they've had to explain this for a lot of people, they probably kind of streamlined the process. They're like, you know what, no, screw it, just white room, and we'll just show them all the babies, boom.
Okay, yes. So the concept of the Matrix now, Michael, let's talk about that. The whole concept or the whole idea which this movie is based on. A computer, simulation that we all live in is such a great idea. And I think it had been done in parts before. So it's not completely original. But, I think there's enough originality in here to give the Wachowskis a pass on that. You're a slave, you're born in a prison. And of course, we talked about the fact that it could be. Well, this whole thing could be an allegory for the real world, which we'll get onto. When I say the real world, I mean like the world we live in, Michael, not the real world in their universe.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world? You wouldn't. It makes you question a lot of things, And I do have some issues with it, which I'll get onto. But firstly, I just want to say. Great idea, obviously. Wonderful idea. Like that guy said in the Gary Taylor Fletcher newspaper
article.
Come up
with this idea?
Yeah, how did someone come up with this idea? It's pretty damn good, I will say. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this kind of idea of like, how do we even know what's real at all? Obviously, aside from, and this is something which I was going to get into when I was talking about I'll be interested to hear what your issues are, but yeah, I'll briefly, when you touch on your issues, I'll briefly touch on my things which kind of relate to a little bit to this, and then it's going to be probably quite a small point. But obviously this idea, even independent of being in films, obviously was like an idea in kind of philosophy, like how do you know what's real? Everything could just be made up, or it could just be a delusion, or whatever else. But yeah, I think the specific way they chose to introduce the concept, this specific kind of question of like through a computer like a computer program, was a good way of introducing the concept. I think that's where the main kind of ingenuity lies. Like obviously, I guess and also you could say the thought of like hearing or being aware of this kind of question, because obviously I think it's a question which people have been aware of for ages, and thinking, oh, I should make a movie about that. I think that's another good thing to have, good idea.
Yes. So it is, and of course we'll talk about the motivation from the machines to do this, like who actually created this in a bit. But firstly, a couple of issues with the Matrix. Like, I do want to know how everyone is kept in the year 1999. I get why that would be. For tech got really good, so people don't figure too much stuff out. Well, people don't figure too much stuff out about the Matrix, perhaps. And that's what I assumed, but it's apparently the peak of humanity as well.
Yeah.
I guess fine. But what if, say, Neo gets to 50? Like, would he be living in the year 2015? How does it work for everyone in the Matrix? Like, they're all in the same Matrix. There's only one Matrix. But,
I'll let you just finish your point.
Yeah, it must be the same Matrix. So I don't know how does time work in the Matrix. If Neo is 28 years old, I don't know, 29, 30, like he would have experienced the 1970s then, or do things just stay exactly like they are in 1999? But that means like you can't develop technology at all. Like culture doesn't develop, and surely even in the Matrix, there would be people who would develop culture, and they must have fucking calendars, because that's the thing, they're introducing new people into the Matrix. Like nobody stays the same age. That isn't explained. So basically, what year was Neo born, Michael? Like, again, you think about this and it all kind of falls apart in terms of everything's kept in 1999. That's something I could never get my head around.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a kind of almost more substantial issue with this, which is that I think it takes away from kind of the, I guess I'm going to say existential substance of the Matrix, because the big question, the big challenge to the audience is, how do you know everything is real? And in order for that to kind of make sense, you would have to, like, the logic would have to be that the film, or rather the world created by the Matrix, would be a believable world. But the issue is that obviously if they're being kept perpetually in the 1990s, then it's kind of like, you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So it's kind of like, by making the Matrix less believable, that not only creates issues in terms of like the kind of logic of the plot, but it also creates issues in terms of like believing that the Matrix would simulate an actual believable reality. Because obviously, like I said, the whole point is supposed to be, well, if a computer could simulate a perfectly believable reality, then it could trick you. And it's like, okay, but that's not what's happening in this film, because obviously a perpetual 1990s going on throughout history isn't really believable. And obviously, yeah, you do have like weird questions like, how does history work in this universe? Like, presumably everybody, I guess, maybe knows about the history. Well, Morpheus specifically references the history of human history, where he says everything was how it was up until the 1990s. So I guess he's assuming that maybe Neo would be, I don't know. But yeah, it's like, yeah, how does history work? Were people aware of the times before the 1990s? Yeah. You've kind of already covered the logic of it, and yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, I know. You can't say people are stuck in 1999 for the rest of their life. You could say, the Matrix started. So you could still it's set in the 22nd century, but the Matrix decided to start in, I don't know, let's not get, let's go early. Let's go like in the 1950s. After the Second World War. I don't know. The Matrix started in the 1950s, and basically they just constructed that world and things with some differences to real life, perhaps gradually progressed like it did, and eventually Neo just happens to be in the year 1999. And I guess maybe you could say, hey, if they get to the year like 20. I don't know when he said in the early 21st century, AI was created by the humans. So maybe when that happens, there's just a big reset, and everybody, it's a reset back to. Sorry,
the Great Reset. That's what you hear about when you take the red pill.
Yeah, the Great Reset, and everybody goes back to the 1950s, and the whole process just starts again. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, that's what I was thinking to how to make this concept work. But yeah, it really, like you say, and it takes away from the overall thing. If what is existence? Like questioning your own existence. If you're stuck perpetually in this year, then it's not realistic, is it? Because of course things constantly change and adapt in real life.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other thing actually, because obviously, and this kind of draws two things together in quite a neat little package, which is that something else I was thinking about is this idea of like one of the things which with obviously like reality being fake is that lots of what you think you know about reality is fake. And I was kind of thinking how like in a way, and this is one of a few things that happen in this film where it kind of like detracts from the impact of the main thing, and it's that like the fact that human history as we know it still existed. And I've always kind of thought like one of the things that would be kind of crazy about the idea of like finding out that everything's just a simulation is finding out that actually the real world, both past and present, is fictitious. And it's almost like it would be more interesting, for example, if Morpheus said, I mean, to be honest, the most interesting thing Morpheus could say, really, but it doesn't quite have to go this far, is that like Earth and Earth's history is a simulation from the Matrix, and the real world is dramatically different. So it's like we, live on, and basically, because obviously it's just like in this case, it's sort of like the idea is supposed to be, what if everything you thought you knew was fake? And then obviously you wake up and it's like, okay, well, actually, it turns out that most of the world as you thought you knew it is real. It's just that like in the early 20th century or whenever, everything started screwing up.
In the early 21st century, of course.
Okay, I couldn't remember. Oh yeah, sorry, obviously, Doig.
Yes, yeah, but no, yeah, again, like it could be better, but yeah. So like, if Neo lives another 5 years, is he in 2004 all of a sudden? Again, I don't know how, unless you just have them living the same day over.
I was gonna say, they could have Groundhog Day.
Like Groundhog Day, yeah. But of course, how would that work with if they're on fucking Earth? But anyway, so there is of course another thing to talk about with the Matrix, Michael, which is AI, a tech dystopia basically. So there's war with the machines. War with
Terminator.
The machines. Was this cliche back in 1999, Michael? Because of course you mentioned Terminator.
Yeah.
Because it has been a common thing to reference since then, robots taking over the world.
Yeah,
obviously this movie is talking about the danger of technology, the risks that it poses, and I think it's quite interesting that it was released right before the millennium, because the optimism about we're going, because I imagine people were optimistic about the future in 1999, like that's the thing, fucking the Agent Smith said it was the high point in human civilization. And I look back and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, it probably was. Honestly, it probably was. Obviously, we have better technology than they did, but consider all the issues with the world, especially nowadays. Things have got a lot worse in a lot of areas. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, people were optimistic, and this movie is kind of like giving a warning, predicting a dark, dangerous future for the human race. And of course, I do like the concept in general that, the machines are harvesting humans for resources and energy, even though it doesn't make sense that they have to just be batteries, because, well, why do you need them alive then? Why do you need to create this whole fucking complicated matrix if you're just using them for batteries? But whatever, it is what it is. I like the overall concept. And yeah, I think it's interesting considering when the movie was released.
Yeah. I think obviously, this idea of like technology getting so advanced that it kind of overthrows humanity. Obviously, I think Terminator is probably the most famous example of that, and I do feel like this film probably like kind of ran with like, hey, what if Terminator, but instead they kind of do it a different way. So rather than trying to exterminate the humans, they harvest humans and use them as like crops, which that ultimately, I think, regarding the idea of it being like a notion that was already around, well, I think they did enough interesting with the concept in terms of like how they thought how the war and the technology taking over would take place that it worked. Obviously, like I agree with you that there's some ways it doesn't really make sense. But no, I think obviously it's kind of like thematically, it's always a bit of a weird thing because it's like, you know, in some sense, it's sort of like, does it actually speak to a genuine kind of like personally, I'm not really worried about technology taking over. Obviously, I think the more interesting thing with kind of technology.
Okay. Well, you know what, Michael, that is interesting because what do we have coming out of Facebook recently?
They're changing their name to Meta.
Yeah, but the metaverse in general.
Yeah, I don't really. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, Luke. I don't actually. I saw that mentioned. I don't really know much about it. I just thought they just made their name even more.
Because you don't know anything, do you?
Because I'm a Twitter person.
You don't know anything. Like it's incredible how little you know about the world. It's genuinely astounding.
In many ways, it's like I've taken the blue pill.
Yeah, but what metaverse is it's just basically offices, but with like fucking Wii, you know, Nintendo Wii. Like they look like characters from that, and you could be like Mark Zuckerberg is like chatting to someone with his like avatar in the metaverse.
Oh, that's so
apparently,
cool.
You can like buy properties in the metaverse as well. Apparently,
okay, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So this sounds a bit like
sounds a bit like The Matrix.
No, I was gonna say there's this thing called, I swear there's like a game or something called Another Life where it's like you can create. And I swear it was like a film. There was like a film about this game.
Yeah, probably. But this is actually
Life.
not a film or a TV. It's something that you can actually do in real life.
It's a real life. No, yeah, I mean, like, to be fair though, again, like, well, what I was about to say is kind of like, I think the real thing with technology is like, it's more about how humans will use it in a bad way. It's kind of like the idea of technology ever actually taking over.
Oh, you say that now, Michael. You say that now.
Yeah, I know that this could come to really bite me in the butt.
Don't jinx the human race, you fucking idiot. Don't jinx the human race. Don't say the machines won't take... But that's the thing, like, we are trending in that direction, and maybe, like you say, the AI will never become sentient and take over the world. But, you know, like, the metaverse, hey, that's just... You know, and you consider, of course, virtual reality, how it's taking off. It's like, it's not that crazy to imagine a scenario like The Matrix being created, and of course it may not actually... And of course, who can forget Ready Player One, Michael? Who can forget that great movie?
That's a good film.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It may not be used... AI may not use this Matrix or metaverse to harvest human energy. That may not go that far, but certainly, yeah, that's something that, again, is it's not that far off in terms of like this concept of the Matrix. And of course, everyone has a hacker name in this world as well, and what everyone on Twitter does as well. No one's their real name.
Yeah, also, where are all the anime profiles in the Matrix? That's a real question.
Yeah, your Xbox Live gamer tag should be your new name. Like, Neo's a cool name. Neo, Cypher's good, Morpheus is good.
I'll tell you what though, like getting the name Neo, that's pretty impressive. You would have thought you'd get like Neo 796943 or something.
Yeah, that's what you have to settle for nowadays, but he was one of the first in the door, so he gets to pick Neo.
That's probably why he's the chosen one. It's like, wow, you got in there so early, well done.
And it's an anagram of one as well. God, we got to take you on board. Anyways,
maybe one was already taken.
Yes. What he was called One.
One was the first one who got killed by an agent. And I'm like, let's try a different one.
Yeah, what if I want to hear Morpheus say, One, you are the one.
One, you are the Neo.
One, you are the Neo. Anyway, so Neo is the one, Michael. That's what we're going to talk about next, of course. He's the one that will bring balance to the Force.
Yes.
Again, it is a massive cliche. Was it really necessary to have a prophecy and for him to be the chosen one? I don't really think so, but it does kind of work with the ending, which we'll get onto in a bit. He could have just been a really good hacker. I don't know. But yeah, what do you think, Michael? Do you think he needed to be the one? Because it does work at the end. Because, you know, would he have gone and rescued Morpheus if he wasn't quote unquote chosen one?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like you could say, I think it would be more interesting if it was almost like again, it would create like some kind of almost thematic, and there are a lot of kind of thematic confusions, I think, with Neo being a one, which do actually confuse me. I was going to say, but you could have it so like Morpheus is almost like lying about him being the one, in which case you'd be like, okay, so is it sometimes okay to lie about reality in order to achieve results? But like within that context, because it's like the idea of him actually in a deep metaphysical sense being the one, obviously first of all that does amount to a pretty gigantic cliche, as you kind of already touched on. The other thing is, and yeah, I guess I'll mention,
is there a need for a prophecy?
Yeah, that's it. Like it's kind of, I mean, it's like the whole Harry Potter has it,
Literally,
Star Wars has it.
I was going to bring up Harry Potter, and that was relation to his character, because the thing is his character just kind of goes with it, like he's the chosen one, like he's Jesus. And we talked about it with Harry Potter, like he just takes things in his stride. And, Neo, of course, throws up, but that's it. He's this introverted loner, of course, but it doesn't really explain how unfazed he is overall. Like, he throws it once and that's it. He doesn't question anything after that.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about he doesn't really have a character. He's just a stand-in for the audience, so he can't have a character, basically.
No, I think ultimately, it does kind of... It does, I think, make his character a little less interesting. The other thing is, like, it's also, like, I don't really know, like, the film kept mentioning, like, fate and destiny and all these kind of ideas, and it's annoying that the film mentions all that stuff, and yet, to be honest, I don't really know what the film was trying to say about all of those things, because it's like, they like, so at first Neo says, I don't believe in fate because I like to believe I'm in control of my own destiny, and it's like immediately be like, okay, so obviously the point of the film is it's about like authentically being free. Like it's supposed to be that freedom from the program. So it's like obviously we're supposed to understand, like on the surface I was like, okay, so we're just supposed to understand the idea of fate and the idea of destiny is a bad thing we're supposed to reject, because that would seem to be the way it's initially presented. But then it's like by the end of the film it's just like, nope, yeah, destiny. And so it almost kind of seems like that sort of undercuts the whole point. You're saying it kind of
contradicts itself.
Yeah, if the whole point is don't, be your own person, don't live in the system. And it's like, well, actually it turns out you can't live in the system, because even if you're not controlled by a computer, you're controlled by fate and destiny and prophecy.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. That is a good point. That is a good point you bring up, Michael. That is a definite contradiction. Yeah. So I think that is something that, again, they're trying to have their cake and eat it as well, because the narrative of the one is so enticing. And yeah, but then again, if there is this one and if this prophecy does exist, like even if you're in the real world, it doesn't seem like you have complete control over your actions, and fate does actually exist. But anyway, so let's talk about the fight scenes, Michael. So
yes,
they upload kung fu knowledge to Neo's brain. I love it when they get started and his trainer asks him, "Do you want more?" And Keanu Reeves goes, "Hell yeah," like that. And then he wakes up with Morpheus next to him and he says, "I know kung fu."
It's pretty fantastic.
It's hilarious. Like Keanu Reeves' delivery. I don't care if it's bad acting. I like it so. Like he's got this ability, Keanu Reeves, to make you not care about the bad acting and actually appreciate his bad acting. That's how great he is.
Yeah.
He's like, this movie would be worse if he acted better. And that is a special talent, wouldn't you say?
No, yeah, absolutely. I think he's yeah, like again, also I will say this with the whole like uploading things, this was like a more minor but another instance where I was almost thinking thematically it was a little bit confused, because it's almost like, okay, so the Matrix is kind of bad because it's inauthentic, but then like just programming yourself to learn something, like surely, but I'm like, okay, you know what, I can kind of accept that because it's like an ends justify means things. Like I'm like, okay, they're using the Matrix. It's almost like, I mean, to be fair, actually, if they wanted to, they could easily have got in a like they could have had a scene where somebody goes, you claim to hate the Matrix, but you use the Matrix. Suspicious. Like that would have been a great thing to have in there.
But here's the thing, he doesn't. This is the crucial. He can't do that kung fu in the real world.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I guess you just say he's using it within the context of
exactly.
But yeah, basically, I did like it. I will say just a bit more generally about kind of the action scenes with regards to the kung fu. Part of me was almost thinking it's so over the top, kind of like the kung fu skills, that it almost feels a little bit less gritty than I would like. Like I do kind of think to myself like,
no, because it's not. Because the point is, it's not real. It's like not real, so it can feel It can feel ridiculous because it's not real, and it's just like pushing like what you can do in this Matrix with a human body. But yeah, so I'm fine with that. I just want to say as well the idea for, because of course you didn't have to add this kung fu thing into this Matrix idea, but of course it's part of this cyberpunk aesthetic, which we'll get into later, and it just makes the movie even more, I guess, iconic and unique and cool. Like again, it is inspired And I love when Mouse calls the crew to watch the fight. Like they know something great is happening.
Yeah, like Morpheus is fighting Neo.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really nice touch. But yeah, I you know what? We'll talk about the specifics of the fighting a bit later on for the end scene. So I got a wiki article, but
Yeah.
so come up with that. But I just think the actual idea to have kung fu in this movie, it's great. And of course, that's another reason why people love The Matrix. I mean, there's so many just things they knock out the park in this movie. You know, with the actual concept, like the build-up, the red pill, blue pill thing, like the camera shots, the fucking wardrobe, like the look with the leather and all that, which has become iconic, and then as well the kung fu. Like it's just like there's so many elements where it's just great, and this is another one of those elements. Even if you think, Michael, what was your issue with the kung fu?
Well, no, yeah, it's just I was just saying, like, I guess my thing is like in terms of it being an action film, like it's like when I think about kind of action films, which obviously, I mean, you could say it's not necessarily an action, you could say it's more of like a sci-fi film, and obviously that's kind of a different thing, because, you know, for example, I don't think the action in Star Wars is fantastic, for example, but like when I think about kind of like action films, it's kind of like having that aspect of the action feeling real. I like, and obviously I realize that it's just not going to happen in this film, but it's just something which I think detracts from the film as an action film, and obviously in that case I kind of, yeah.
You know, that's fair, I guess, even though I disagree. Does it really detract as an action film?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just like whenever I watch this film, I just like I don't really get that invested in the action, just because it does feel so not real. It's kind of
but that's the thing. It's not real, but you know the context of it. It's okay for it to be not real because they're pushing. That's the whole idea. Especially, I mean, I'm not sure about the sequels. In this one, they're pushing the boundaries of kung fu. They're doing things which humans should not be able to do, and they've given reasons for that, and that's why you can appreciate just this. What you're seeing is just on another level, and you can, when they're kicking people in the chest, like up in the air, it looks ridiculous, but then you remember, like, it's not real. They aren't actually in the real world. So, and this goes to my next point, when Morpheus is talking about, you know, you have to free your mind. You know, it's not about your muscles in the simulation. It's not about the laws of physics.
Yeah, I do like that idea.
Yeah, it's all about you processing things faster than anybody else. Basically, your imagination is the limit. So you can do what you like, basically, if you free your mind from the constraints of reality. And of course, this is, you know, very much an Eastern philosophy, and that goes along with, you know, kung fu. It goes along with it, so it works.
It's like that little kid. It's like, you have to realize there is no spoon. There is only, I don't know what they say, but yeah, there is no spoon. Again, like that's the thing. So you can do these unrealistic things in this world, given the context. Absolutely. So I don't have a problem with that at all. No, yeah, I mean, I do actually see. I do like that premise. And yeah, I mean, I do wonder whether or not it would have been possible to even go further with it. And I don't, you know, I'm just trying to think whether or not it's kind of realistic. I mean, like obviously, for example, I guess. Things like jumping through walls, like I've almost, in a way, it's kind of like I was thinking. It feels like it could have turned into a sort of generic, and I say generic in a way it makes it sound bad, but I don't know that necessarily would have been bad. Which is like kind of it just turned into almost like a superhero film in terms of like maybe you had different people who were able to manipulate the Matrix in different ways. So I was like, one person was able to manipulate the Matrix to create, you know, I was just thinking that, again, it doesn't really matter. But it just would have added maybe a bit more dynamism to it. But I'm not sure.
But it's not that's the point. It's not a superhero thing. It's like, because it's just code. Yeah. The Matrix is just code. So if you can manipulate code, then you can just do anything with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, I did like it, yeah.
Sorry, I was just saying, it would be weird if I can only manipulate the code to fly, but I can't manipulate the code to, you know, run really fast.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's like, I know, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I do like the element, you know, it's all about, you can do these incredible things with your body. Of course you can within the Matrix, but it's all really about the mind. It's all about the mind. That makes it, you know, that's your only limit. And of course, especially for Neo, because he is, of course, the one.
Also, actually, I was going to say, the other thing I liked about the way like the mind worked fighting, because for a minute I remember I was thinking to myself, like, how is it that like the Matrix can't just shut this down because it's the actual program? But then I was kind of thinking to myself, it's a bit like they're sort of a computer virus, where it's like, obviously if a virus gets on your computer, then it can do all sorts of stuff.
Now you're seeing
it's not as if your computer just shuts it down.
Exactly. So now you're seeing the parallels, because this, more than anything, you know, you can say this movie is an allegory for a lot of things, but more than anything, it's just like, this is like, it's like a video game, basically. That's what it is. This, like, Neo is a character in a video game, and he's a super hacker, and he can hack anything he likes, and he can change things to fit his, you know, to fit whatever he wants. So there you go. We'll move on to. Okay, so here's interesting, Michael, because of course we have a villain. in this movie, Cypher. And it's a nice, twist. Like, he betrays the group because he wants to go back into the Matrix. And of course, he's the bad guy. But he could have just been a normal bad guy. But he brings up an interesting philosophical debate, which, of course, he's eating the steak, and he says, even though he knows the steak doesn't exist, the Matrix is telling his brain that it's juicy and delicious, he doesn't care because ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
And that is completely true, of course. Ignorance is bliss. The happiest people on earth are the people that stay away from the news. That's what I'd say.
True.
Would you rather be happy, or would you rather be burdened by the knowledge of what is going on in the world?
Yeah, that's a real tough choice.
No, but that's the thing. The villain could have just been, because there's two sides to the debate, like the red pill or the blue pill. Like, everyone on that ship is taking the red pill, and the villain could have just been some person who isn't on the blue pill side. But again, this is why it's a great twist. I think it's a nice twist in the story, and the villain presents the opposite side of the philosophical debate on this issue, which is why it's so good. This twist is so good.
Yeah,
so
you know what? It's so good, actually, that I wish that this was kind of the greater substance of the villain. And by that, what I mean is, to clarify, I've always kind of thought to myself, I find like the idea of the Matrix itself having, I do like the idea of the agents. But the thing is, it's like the agents are the prevailing villains in these films, which I kind of just feel like it's not as interesting in a way, because it's just like they're computer programs, and it's almost like the thing is, Agent Smith, he has like a personality and all that kind of stuff, I guess, and you're supposed to, I guess, like he's kind of considered in his way like a bit of an iconic villain, but it's also like he is literally just a computer. And I was thinking kind of, it would be interesting if you had this idea of like, say for example, the Matrix, it doesn't want to necessarily have to fully commit to defending itself. So there are quite a large number of people who have worked out the Matrix is fake or whatever, but they want to just live in it anyway and enjoy living in it. And that then they could be like a more substantial, and then it would kind of be, there'd be a bit more to it in terms of them as villains.
Okay, you're talking about something that could happen in the following films, Michael. And basically, we're talking about the Matrix here.
Well, I actually don't know whether or not that does happen in the following films, to be honest.
No, that's what I'm saying. You're talking about a concept which could be. I
guess what I'm saying is, just within the context of this film, I'm just like saying that the other villains, because really the point I'm making is I think Cypher is a really good villain. I think like his motivation is really good, and I'm just saying like by contrast, it's almost like Cypher kind of overshadows the main villain of the film, and that like the main villain of the film is just somebody you don't really care about. That's just kind of my
No, I don't think he overshadows it at all. I think they work well in tandem. You got him, because he really kicks off the plot, really, because you have the introduction and Neo coming in and exploring the Matrix, but Cypher really kicks off like why things happen in the second half of the movie. So yeah, it's I don't think he's overshadowed at all. I think Joey Pantoliano's performance is remembered, and just to talk a bit more about the philosophical debate and all that shit. Like, he doesn't want to remember anything, of course.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. If you don't like the Matrix, I'm talking about the movie Matrix. If you don't like this movie, I'm guessing you would probably take the blue pill. I think that's how it works, because I think the red pill is fetishized, of course it is, but so many people in society would, I don't know, secret or not, take the blue pill. Like, I think about the recent movie reviewed, JFK, the wife of Kevin Costner.
What a blue pillar.
Yeah, she was a blue pillar. She was like, "Oh, Jim, would you stop going on about that JFK assassination? Would you just come to bed?" That kind of attitude. And again, it's such an interesting concept, the whole Matrix idea. And then the Wachowskis throw in the opposite view and make that opposite view the villain and make it kind of a philosophical debate. It's so good because they didn't need to go down that path. So again, the villain, they nailed this Cypher character very much.
I had something else just to say about the action. It's also a philosophical thing, and I'm interested what you think about this, because I've heard someone else bring this up before, which is, how do you feel about the way that this film takes the Matrix characters, Neo and Trinity and all that, killing real people who are just doing their job, and just like turns it into something cool? Because it is something I kind of think about. So
I was gonna talk about that at the end with the conspiracy theories, but again, because Morpheus says something quite I'll bring it up now because you brought it up now. Okay, Morpheus says something earlier on in the movie which is everybody who is in the Matrix is against you because they want to protect the system. They can't comprehend not being in the system. So therefore, it kind of that is very conspiratorial thinking. Like everyone who doesn't know what I know is kind of the enemy.
Yeah,
they're sheep basically. And of course, that of course word is thrown around by conspiracy theorists, and it's meant to say all these people think the same, but also think about sheep.
NPCs.
They're animals, and you as a human, you're smarter than a sheep, and of course humans kill sheep and they eat sheep. So there's a darker implication in that word where it's basically like, you're not important at all.
Lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah, you're not important at all, and that is the thing. It ain't great. I have to say, it ain't great, but
think about all the widows created from Neo's little escapade.
Yes, but they would argue, Neo and Morpheus and all the rest. Well, they weren't alive anyway. They weren't alive anyway.
They were living in a fake reality.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I would say that's still a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
But they need to do what they need to do. So I guess the ends justify the means in this case. And Morpheus gives a nice line earlier on in the movie about how that kind of thing is justified. But anyway, so the group enters the Matrix to visit the Oracle. And she implies that Neo is not the one, and that he will have to choose between Morpheus' life and his own. And it's a nice, interesting twist, throws a wrench into this idea. Neo's the one. Well, he isn't the one. And, even more intrigue has been created. So I do like the plot development. But of course, we'll get onto that a bit later with the end. Before they can leave, the Matrix agents and the police ambush the group, who are, of course, tipped off by Cypher. Morpheus gets captured. Now, I will say the plot element with Cypher is good, of course, because what he represents, and it's a nice twist, like I say. Naturally, however, you have to concede there is a big coincidence that he decides to betray the group as soon as Neo joins this group. It could be that he was set off by Neo joining Michael because he hated Morpheus, and that tipped him over the edge. Perhaps when he brought back, Neo, like the one, he wasn't impressed at all. So, but I don't think that's really the case. I think it's just a coincidence. What do you think?
Yeah, I pretty much would agree with you, and I think that is ultimately, and if I kind of think if it was going to be, if they had an explanation for why it wasn't a coincidence, that should have been made more obvious. Yeah, I think you can come up with explanations for it, but obviously, I think when you find yourself having to come up with explanations for the film because the film doesn't make those explanations kind of obvious, I think that's a bit of a flaw.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly doesn't believe in the prophecy. He tells Neo, just run away from the agents if you see one. But it doesn't seem like he gets extra pissed off with Neo, and that's what sets him to betray the group. Yeah, it just seems like he was done with Morpheus in general, and it's just a coincidence in timing. But anyway, Agent Smith, of course, explains to Morpheus that the first Matrix was a paradise, Michael, where nobody suffered and everyone would be happy, but nobody would accept the programming and entire crops of humans were lost. So did the machines lack the programming language to describe their perfect world, the human's perfect world, or was it humans being defined by their or humans defining reality through misery and suffering? And he says, the perfect world was thought of as a dream by humans, which meant their primitive cerebrium, whatever, kept trying to wake themselves up. So this is interesting because one, is it accurate? Two, is it deep, Michael? Is it thoughtful, or is it quite shallow?
Yeah,
this interpretation of humanity.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really know. Obviously, I think there is an argument of a lot of people are very. See, the thing is, I don't actually know if this is what the film is trying to say, which is that I think lots of people are very skeptical about solutions to the problem because they just write them off as idealistic, that's an actual thing that happens. But I'm not sure if that's the point the film is trying to make. And yeah, if it's just saying human beings they find suffering believable, and a world without suffering they don't find it believable, I guess. Which
so humans on some level want suffering.
Yeah, well, I think maybe you could make an argument that.
Sorry, I was just going to say. I think here's the thing. I think it depends on the culture you come from. I would say because not all human cultures are the same. In Britain, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we love suffering.
People can't be happy. People don't want to be happy in this country. People are happy wallowing in shit, and we can never dream of anything better than what we have.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I do think it's almost there is a way you can interpret this a bit more. It's kind of I guess, there's the idea that suffering's part of the human experience. And it's almost like, in a way, people aren't satisfied if they get like an incomplete human experience. I mean, it's kind of the whole point of Inside Out, right? That we need sadness and joy in our lives in order to actually be well-rounded individuals. So I guess that would be like a way of understanding, which isn't quite as kind of negative.
Sadness is different to suffering.
Yeah, but obviously they're kind of along the, like when I see somebody, when I see hundreds of thousands of people killed in a tsunami, I think, oh, that makes me kind of sad. So I'm sad because of suffering. Yeah, I get you, but.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think, like in America, for instance, even though their country is a worse place to live in,
they like happiness more.
They have a more hopeful outlook on life, which again you could argue kind of obscures their reality because they have this outlook and it kind of sweeps under the rug all their issues because they believe in themselves, whatever the fuck that means. But sometimes that attitude is nice to have. But so yeah, I think the humans they could never live in paradise because they enjoy suffering. Just depend on where you come from in general, what your culture, what your culture is, and also like is this shallow? Because I see some people like say this like oh yeah no fucking in terms of criticizing humanity in general, remember what they said in The Matrix? Humans couldn't live in a perfect world. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's just something that these writers, the Wachowskis, thought up, which is quite a neat idea, but I don't think it's really that deep, to be honest. Yeah. Like, the movie doesn't explore that concept really at all.
I mean, I almost wonder if it's just an excuse because, like, kind of a preempt, because people might otherwise, like, they might nitpick and say, if the Matrix wants people to accept, well, why didn't they just make the world better? Because obviously, for example, Neo's life isn't good, which is, in a way, kind of makes it easier for him to take the red pill. Whereas, like, it could be like, so someone could say, well, what if the Matrix just made everybody's life perfect? Then it'd be far less likely.
I think that is a large portion of it. Just like, humans can't deal with the perfect world. Yeah, that's why it's not a perfect world. Yeah, but again, I don't think that point they make is invalid. But yeah, it's not that deep at all. It is. Yeah, it's quite shallow thing. But anyway, the ending, Michael. I do like the ending. Neo, of course, has to rescue Morpheus. He's told by the Oracle, he has to choose who gets to live, and that he isn't the one. But, of course, the genius of this is, if Neo believed he was the one, then he wouldn't go to rescue Morpheus, would he? Because
that's true, yeah.
Because if he believes he's the one, then, well, Morpheus did his part, and now it's my turn to save humanity. And so I can't risk my life to go and save him, because I'm the one. But since he doesn't believe he's the one, he goes in to rescue Morpheus. And, of course, that's how he proves he is the one, by doing something that only he could do, by saving Morpheus. And, a great ending, of course, which provides, a lot of drama, and it's very clever. It enhances the story and the character arc of Keanu Reeves, and there's a twist. Oh, he's not the one, but it twists back, and then it makes sense as to why the Oracle said he's not the one. So you know what? From that aspect, it's really, really good.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. I think the general kind of structure of the end, and like again, it falls into the category of it also being quite. Well, in a way, it's kind of obviously simple, but yeah, you do have that complex aspect regarding the reveal. Because yeah, in some sense, it's very simple. It's just like, well, Morpheus has been captured; they need to go rescue him. Classic snatch and grab operation. But obviously, that specific idea of like the relationship between his perception of himself and the actions he's going to choose to take. Yeah, I also liked the way that kind of played out. I thought it was very clever.
No, it was very clever. So well thought out there for the ending, because normally you have these endings in these action movies which just, we got to rescue somebody, or we got to kill somebody. But this one, of course, it was that to an extent, but it was also, a bit more complex, and that is very much appreciated. So anyway, the action scenes, Michael. Let's talk about them. Of course, we talked about the kung fu before, but now we have some kung fu, and of course Keanu Reeves dodging bullets. And it's very interesting how the Wachowskis came up with this, and as you can probably guess, Michael, the Japanese has something to do with it. I know, right? So the Wachowskis drew upon their admiration for Japanese animation, such as Ninja Scroll and Akira. Director Mamoru Oshii, 1995 animated film. What, Michael?
1995 animated film.
It's the famous one.
Is it the Akira? Wait, what's the one that Scarlett Johansson?
Yes,
in?
It's
Ghost
that
in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of it. Yeah.
Yes, Ghost in the Scarlett Johansson. Great. Yeah, was a particularly strong influence. Producer Joel Silver has stated that the Wachowskis first described their intentions for The Matrix by showing him that anime, saying, "We want to do that for real." Honestly, respect. That's great. Matsu, considering, like, what's it, Cowboy Bebop? How they did that for real. Didn't go so well, did it? It was cancelled, I believe. Matsushita Ishikawa, producer of Ghost in the Shell, noted that the anime's high-quality visuals were a strong source of inspiration for the Wachowskis. He also commented, cyberpunk films are very difficult to describe to a third person, and imagine that The Matrix is the kind of film that was very difficult to draw upon in a written proposal for them to take to film studios. And I would agree. But thankfully, Ghost in the Shell worked. Because, imagine explaining, like, oh, yeah, we want to do this with the bullets, and we want to... Yeah, we want this
like,
kind
the
of...
thing is, when you said it, you literally sound like you were some kind of, like, drunk person. Like, we want the bullets, like, pew, 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 and you're like... leaning backwards, ducking, and...
Yeah, all of this shit. And it's honestly, it's great. It's fantastic. And again, this is another thing which just made the movie even more iconic. And yeah, I think you would have to be blind not to notice like the Japanese influence, of course, naturally with the kung fu. Although I think is that Chinese? I think that's Chinese.
Yeah, karate's Japanese.
Yeah, the Eastern influence, shall we say, in this movie. Even like the Matrix code, like it looks like it's,
Yeah, because it's going like downwards.
Yeah, but it looks like it's Japanese writing. Or Chinese. Maybe I'm just being really offensive saying that, but to me it looks like that. And of course, like the overall cyberpunk aesthetic, Michael. Like I think when you have this cyberpunk aesthetic, like it has to look somewhat like urban Japan. I think it has to, like, because obviously that's where their cities do seem the most like technologically advanced, just on the face of it. I don't know. So it would make sense to if you're going down that path, like, oh, look at all this tech in the future, that you'd make things look more Japanese. But yeah, and of course the fighting plays into that as well. But yeah, anything to say on the action scenes, Michael?
No, yeah, I think obviously you kind of covered it with the kung fu, and yeah, I think ultimately it is well done, and I do enjoy it, and it does add an interesting dimension to it. And yeah, I wanted to say on the aesthetic more generally. I do like it. Again, I think if I had like a very minor criticism, it would be that like it makes the Matrix world look less real, which sort of in a way like you could kind of like it kind of cuts both ways, because you could say, well, that just reinforces the fact that it's fake, but it's kind of like I almost feel like it would be more interesting if the Matrix seemed more real, because then it would be like it would sort of be more challenging that it's not real. That's just the thing on the aesthetic.
The Matrix seemed like an American Beauty, like suburbs,
Yeah, exactly. Because it's kind of like it looks very, because I think about like how all the houses are very kind of dystopian and like broken down. It's all very kind of like grimy, and it's like it doesn't really feel like they're in the real world. Which obviously, if the point of the Matrix was to be like, hey, the world you're in could be fake. Yeah, that's just kind of mind of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a dystopian aesthetic, which of course is a cyberpunk aesthetic. The two are very similar, and therefore, of course, like you say, like doesn't look like if something is naturally a dystopia, then it's not really the real world by definition. But anyway, so let's talk about the ending, Michael, some more. Neo. He's like a superhero, and what I like is it's explained how he is a superhero. He can bend the Matrix to his will, of course, and it's perfect how he can be so good at doing this, because the rules are explained, Michael, and we understand. Yes. We understand why he can avoid the bullets. We understand, and that's so great that you see these sometimes action movies and these people do incredible things, and it's like, well, that's not realistic. And of course, this isn't, but it is, because they're not actually in the real world. They're in this Matrix, and he's basically, like I said, he's this ultimate hacker. Who doesn't play by the rules, like in a fucking video game, So like that's great. I just want to shout out and you criticize the movie for not being realistic before, but it's as long as it's explained how Neo can be so good, I'm fine with it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, yeah, I do actually. I do like the fact that there is this logic, and obviously, I mean, it allows. Like obviously flying, which like you get in Superman, just very obviously makes no sense at all, because it's just like it completely defies the laws of physics. Whereas in this film, obviously it's like the laws of physics don't matter. So I think there's definitely like a lot you can do with that concept, which does make it very enjoyable. Yeah, just to see people move super fast. Overall, yeah, I do like that aspect. And I think, to be honest, I remember before I saw The Matrix, I didn't really know what The Matrix was, and it was actually explained to me very broadly by my dad with simply the words or the explanation: people work out they're living in a computer simulation and realize that they can control the computer simulation to have superpowers, basically, is how he explained it. Yeah. And I was like, oh wow, that sounds really cool. And yeah, it is really cool. Like, I do think that idea of like that's the specific
you said
way
you
they
didn't
get
like
it.
the action before. You said that.
No, the thing is, okay, so what I mean is I don't find the action that kind of emotionally, emotion is a bit of a weird word, but I don't find it that impactful from like a kind of in a raw sense, which is what I like about action. I find it impressive from a kind of logic standpoint, if that makes sense. I'm like, oh yeah, I like the way it's setting up, but it's just like I'm not, because I know a lot of people are like, oh man, the action's so cool. Like they kind of have like a visceral enthusiasm for the action, and I'm saying I don't really have that visceral enthusiasm for it because I just think actually it's just like it's so over the top that I'm just like, well, yeah, that's impressive, but it's kind of like it doesn't hit me where I live.
I'd say it's not over the top enough. Like it can get, but it's not. Like they clearly do things which are unrealistic, but it's not so over the top. It is cool. I'm sorry, I do have a visceral reaction when I see it, Michael. I'm sorry if that offends you, that triggers you. But yeah, no, that's the thing. As long as the rules are explained how this can happen, I'm all in, and it's not too crazy. Like it's not fucking too crazy. Like come on, it's not the most unrealistic thing you've ever seen, is it? Anyway, so the final showdown with the Asian.
Asian? I swear you said Asian.
Agent. Neo, he doesn't run. Instead, he begins to believe. I love that line from Morpheus. You know, a great fight. And he's about to be killed by a machine, which was built by humans to serve them, a train. Very poetic. But of course, he escapes. And then he dies, though. He gets shot. But Trinity gives him the kiss of life, Michael. The kiss of life. And now the thing is, there's been a lot of rules and, you know, everything's been explained, but apparently you can kiss the one and you can bring them back to life. I don't know, like love is, maybe you could argue like love is an emotion machines don't factor in for, like, because they're just machines, they can't love, they don't know what that emotion is, like, I don't know. But yeah, it's just like, okay, well, you know, maybe if that was explained beforehand, because it just seems a bit shit.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen love. You know, we've mentioned Harry Potter several times here, and has to be said, we've already seen love as an explanation for how to solve the problem in the end, and it's never good. It's never good,
no, because it's just okay, fine, love, great, love, wonderful, and of course, I imagine a lot of the neckbeards who watch this agreed.
Yeah, because they hate love.
They hate love. But yeah, no, just like if you explained it beforehand, some way, somehow, I would have been more okay with it, but it just seems like a bit of a cop-out at the end. But, of course, Neo, he then wakes up, just like Jesus, he's been resurrected, and he sees how everything really is. He can see the Matrix. He can see the Matrix, Michael, how it really is. It's just all code, Michael. And then the bullets are fired towards him, and what does he go? Well, what does he say? What does he say, Michael?
Does he say, okay, am I right about this? Does he say, whoa, or am I just off there?
No. He goes, no.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, the bullets, no. And he stops them. So no, cool.
Stop it.
So epic. I mean, that's the thing, like, it's kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of ironically saying that, but at the same time, you know, it's like the galaxy brain thing. It's like, oh, that's such a cool scene. And it's like, well, it's not really that cool because, you know, it's like you giving him the power of a god. You know, that's the next level up, and it's not that fun because all of a sudden he's a god. But then the ultimate galaxy brain is no, it is so cool to see this person finally realise their abilities and finally see what is actually real right at the end of the movie. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it, even though it, again, logic is how does he see everything after waking up? How? I'm not sure, but there you go.
No, yeah, I do enjoy the moment. I do especially enjoy the moment where it's kind of like he does see the code for what it is, and it does feel like it kind of feels like, I mean, it's basically like achieving enlightenment. It's a bit like, actually, you know what I'm thinking of is the thing that I immediately think of, the episode of Futurama where Fry drinks 100 cups of coffee, and then when he drinks his 100th cup of coffee, everything just like slows down, and he just seems to become like aware of everything on another level of existence, and he's just like, and it starts playing like this kind of beautiful kind of spiritual music in the background, like doo, doo.
Yeah,
and yeah, he's just like looking at the world as it really is, and it's like that's what happens when you drink 100 cups of coffee.
Yeah, no, it is. It is kind of like that, and obviously that's a joke. But this one, yeah, you know what? Yeah. I like it. I don't care. I like it. It's fun. You know, you can do that right at the end of the movie. Like right at the end, you can have your guy become a god basically and just stop bullets. I think that's okay to have it done there right at the finale. Anyway, so then it ends, Michael, and we've got some themes to talk about. Of course, we've got some themes to discuss before we end. So. Let's go down to the themes. Of course, there's a lot of talk about this, and let's discuss philosophy, Michael. You ready to
Yes.
discuss philosophy? So I'm just looking here. Here we go. A connection between the premise of The Matrix and Plato's allegory of the cave has also been suggested.
Yes.
Allegory is related to Plato's theory of forms, which holds the true essence of an object is not what we perceive with our senses, but rather its quality, and that most people perceive only the shadow of the object and thus limited to its false perception. So there you go. It's Plato, Michael. It's Plato.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that logic. Obviously, we all know about Plato's the cave. It's like you just see the shadows of things. You don't see how they really are. That works.
So, not just Plato, we have religion and mythology. Andrew Godowski sees allusions to Christ, including Neo's virgin birth, his doubts in himself, the prophecy, along with Christian references, and of course, Trinity could refer to Christianity's doctrine of Trinity. So there's something. It's also been noted that the character Morpheus paraphrases the Chinese Taoist philosopher Zhang Ji when he asks Neo, "Have you ever had a dream that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream? How would you know the difference?" So there you go. Matrix, like this Matrixism, is a fan-based possibility, satirical religion created as the Matrix religion. So there you go. Possibly satirical, apparently. So yeah. Got anything to say on the religious side? Because there's Buddhism as well, maybe within.
I mean, obviously we all know about Taoism and or Taoism, the idea of Wei Wu Wei, action without action, which has got nothing to do with it. I just felt like showing off that I knew one thing to do with Taoism. I mean, obviously you could kind of say with the religious aspect, like there's the idea of like other worlds or like a different degrees of consciousness and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot there. I guess the thing is, there's no like direct parallels or like no direct commentary. So yeah, obviously, and for example, like the Trinity or a character being called Trinity is a pretty minor thing, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, obviously the Jesus thing is very much there, but like, does it go deeper than that? I'm not sure. And that's the thing, going on to our last topic before we conclude, the conspiracy theories, which I want to discuss because, like there's a lot of allusions to that, or language which conspiracy theorists can use. Like, why do my eyes hurt? Because you've never used them before. I like that. And, most people are dependent on the system. They are not ready to be unplugged. And that can be said about a lot of stupid conspiracy by conspiracy theorists, about people who promote, and these people promote, stupid conspiracy theories. For example, vaccines, Michael, that we are, of course, in that situation right now.
I also found it weird when Morpheus goes on a massive, unhinged rant about how Barack Obama needs to show his true birth certificate.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, the global elites are pulling the wool over your eyes, and that can maybe divulge into anti-Semitic stuff. But that's the thing, like, it's that kind of talk. That's the thing. The Matrix, I don't think, is trying to suggest that conspiracy theories are real in general. I just think it's a cool concept that the writers or the Wachowskis were like, hey, this is a really good concept, and we pair it with all these different things, we can make a really cool movie. And they were right. But just the generalities in how Morpheus speaks can fit in very well with how conspiracy theorists speak. And I was going to ask, is this movie, is the Matrix like, deep, or is it shallow? And in general, and I think, I don't think, because they didn't really explore a lot in terms of, that's the thing, it's not really an allegory for anything, this Matrix. It's just about the Matrix. That's what I think.
I would actually definitely agree with that. I really like, I don't view this film as, and I like choosing this word, thematically dense. I don't, it's not like I was thinking about this recently. I was thinking about like films we've reviewed that are very kind of like get into the weeds of philosophy in an interesting way. And the first film that actually came to my mind was Arrival, which obviously really touches on stuff like the meaning of language and knowledge and communication. It like really gets into it from like lots of angles, and you can kind of pick it apart. And I was thinking, this film isn't like, it doesn't really get deep into anything. And obviously, I was talking about it in terms of philosophy, but obviously there's plenty of other films, like, I mean, Parasite, for example, that really gets deep into it. Like, Parasite doesn't just do kind of like a glancing, like, oh, isn't the world strange and fake? Like kind of really makes some substantial critiques. Whereas, I don't think you can really say that for The Matrix. It is sort of, I mean, obviously, like, you talk about shallowness, obviously, I think you could say it's a bit like, this film does feel a little bit like somebody who could be high just telling you, like, this concept. Like, it's almost like the premise of this film is something that someone could literally just say to you while they've just taken a massive bong rip. I
Yeah.
was like, man, imagine if like society's just like computers with like batteries or something, dude.
And that wouldn't be the case if within the movie you could clearly see there was an allegory for something else. Like we talked
Yeah,
about
yeah.
capitalism before, or anything else. But there's not. There's not. You have to like really do it yourself. And of course, like we've said, like intention does matter. So when you're talking about like Plato and the cave and all that, well, Plato's bigger point was like people are stupid and democracy doesn't work. And this movie does not. Like that would be an interesting theme to pursue, even if I wouldn't agree with it. But this movie, for instance, like that theme, which you could maybe learn from that isn't pursued. And it just seems in general, yeah, it's just this movie isn't great when it comes to themes, but maybe it's not trying to. Like you can interpret things, but if there's no intention there, then you can't really. And I agree that stops this movie going to another level. But anyway, Michael, can you give us your conclusion? You conclude first.
Right. Yes. So, I'll start with kind of, I guess, the positives. Why not? Because then I can end on a negative. No, overall, I mean, this film, I would say the two main positives are the basic structure of the plot and the way the plot kind of progresses. Obviously, I think that you could say the plot is very simple, but I think that's because there's a lot going on in terms of what's introduced. And I think the way things are introduced is very good. I think, yeah, basically this film, it's not like unwieldy or annoying, which I actually think is probably true of the other. I haven't seen any of the other Wachowski films in a long while, but I think the general perception I get is that people find those films annoying. It would be the accurate way to describe them, and this film definitely isn't that. And yeah, I like that. I also did think a lot of the technical aspects are very good, including obviously the fighting and stuff like that. But I guess, to make it quicker, I'll just move on to the broad negatives, which is one, when it came to themes, I don't think this film really hit home. Like, I think a lot of people will act as if because this film has a kind of vague philosophical element to it, that makes it better. I would say the philosophical element is only good insofar as it facilitates making the plot a bit more interesting. Like, it's not something which actually, I think, really communicates very much interesting thematically. And obviously, when we talk about, for example, the capitalism and things like that, as I kind of said from the beginning, there's, you compare it to, for example, American Beauty, obviously came out the same year, kind of grouped together with it. American Beauty had like a lot thematically to say about a lot of stuff. American Beauty was a thematically dense film, I'm happy saying. This film isn't really. So with that said, I kind of just have to give this film what I would give a decently strong action film or kind of action sci-fi film, which I think you'll probably disagree because you like a lot of this film. It'd be interesting to see where you rank it because you've also, I think, agreed with a lot of my criticisms. It could just be that we weight the criticisms differently because I think I agree with every single positive almost, and we both agree on almost every single negative. I'm going to give it a low 7, which I think is a good score. I mean, obviously it's 6 is a good score. But yeah,
you're going to give this a low 7. No, I'm sorry. You're completely biased. No way. You've given. I said before, the Philosopher's Stone better not have a higher rating than this, and I was kind of joking. But you can't give this movie a 7 out of 10.
I mean, look, okay, here's the thing. Okay, so I guess the one thing which I think probably this kind of the innovative technological aspect, which yes, I will admit is something which it's something which is I underappreciate because it's like I think to myself when I'm watching the film, it just doesn't really like it. Like knowing that this film was so innovative technologically doesn't do that much for me. Like I guess.
Okay. Well, if it happened in a fucking J.K. Rowling movie, maybe we'd have a different opinion on it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I will.
I can't believe
admit,
you're giving
this
a 7 out of 10. Oh, I can't believe that because here's the thing. Obviously, what stops this movie from being like a 9.5 or even a 10 for me would be the lack of the philosophical debates. But that's fine. I mean, that's the thing. The villain in Cypher is on the opposite side of this philosophical debate in terms of do you want to know what the real world is or not? And that debate is appreciated, but that you can only go as far as that, it only works in the context of the Matrix. Like that debate doesn't really apply to anything in the real world, in our real world. So therefore, yeah, that's as far as you can take it, really. And yeah, the themes, you can interpret things, but there's nothing really there beyond what you want to make out of it. And so then you're left with everything else. But everything else is really, really good. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like, you think about the action is really, really good, in my opinion. The rules which facilitate the action, that's great. Obviously, the overall concept of the Matrix itself is a wonderful idea. And then the build-up is so good. Like the red pill, blue pill thing, we talked about it. You don't need that in this movie, but it's still there. And it's of course, probably the most iconic scene. from the movie. And then you've got the aesthetic in general that became iconic, and the camera shots as well that became iconic. It really, so many elements make this such an incredibly good movie. And of course, it misses out that one last little bit to take it up to a 9.5 or a 10. And that generally would have been the case for me. I mean, I had such a good time. I had such a blast, Michael, watching this movie. I really, really did. So I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10 because I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that because to me, genuine. Oh, sorry, I thought you were, but yeah, I was just going to say, genuinely, like, part of the issue is that I don't really I'm not enthused about the idea of watching this film. It's kind of like there is a lot of stuff in it that I can appreciate, but it's sort of like it would be hard for me to give it a particularly high score because honestly, like, if somebody said, there's lots of instances where somebody could give me quite a few choices in terms of what film I'd want to watch, and if The Matrix was on there, I'd be like, it's a good film, but there's actually not that much it has to really. I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't have much to offer because it does, but it's just nothing there where I'm like super enthused by it.
I guess it doesn't have that much to offer intellectually, but in terms of just it being a really great movie, and that's it. It's just a really great fucking movie, and that intellectual side that does stop it from being a 10. But yeah, I just think again, like the execution, how many of these great ideas they have, and they execute it so well, and it's a great fun journey. And again, the reveal when Neo wakes up in the real world in that pod, it's just like, there's so many moments which, yes, like philosophical or intellectually, I guess it's not incredible, but it just knocks those moments out of the park. And you know what? That is appreciated, from me. So that's why it's a 9 out of 10. But anyway, I for example, I give Borat an 8.5 out of 10. So
Borat's a classic. I mean, actually, I think actually the one thing kind of actually which I've realized kind of summarizes it is that like it's almost like in some senses because there's different ways that I can understand this film, but any way I understand it doesn't quite do it as well. So for example, if I understood this film as a sci-fi, well actually okay, that's maybe this. So if I understood this film as say like an action sci-fi adventure film, well you run into issues like I don't really like the characters as much as something. So for example, like if I were to say do I prefer this film or Star Wars as an action sci-fi adventure film, I'd be like, well, I prefer Star Wars because of how engaged I get in like the plot and the characters, for example. Or if I were to understand it as an action film, do I prefer this film or Die Hard? I'd probably be like, I kind of prefer Die Hard because it's a more kind of intense action film, and that's kind of like my attitude. And obviously in terms of like if I were to say, well, what about this film as like a thematic exploration, and obviously as I've already kind of covered, so it's almost like that's kind of my issue. It's like this film, there's like almost 3 different kind of things it could be, and it could be any one of those things. But if I kind of looked at it as any one of those things, it's like if I wanted to watch an action film, there's other action films I'd rather watch. If I wanted to watch a sci-fi film, there's other. So that's kind of
disagree. In terms of an action film, it is a great action film, and yes, it's not realistic, but that is explained within the context of the movie why they're doing these crazy things, and they don't go overboard with it either, which is quite crucial. But anyway, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree on this, and let's talk about. Well, first and foremost, Michael, we reviewed Spider-Man: Far From Home last week. Because we were predicting Spider-Man No Way Home on Rotten Tomatoes, and after 132 votes on Rotten Tomatoes, normally it's about 500, most of these Marvel movies, but I think that's a fair enough sample. I don't expect it to change that much.
Yeah, over 100 is fine.
Yeah, we have a 94 score on Rotten Tomatoes. So
what did I say?
I predicted 80. I predicted 85. You predicted 86. So you're 8 away. I'm 9 away, which means you have a score of 122, and so do I. So we go into the final, movie tied on points.
This is intense.
Just like Hamilton and Verstappen. Literally, I referenced.
Yeah, you couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't write it. It's unlike that debacle on Sunday or a couple of Sundays ago, this won't be scripted. We're not going to have Michael Matty interfere in this. So, Michael, I guess it's time to guess what the Matrix Resurrections is going to get on Rotten Tomatoes, and that will decide between us who has the better prediction in 2022. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Sorry, in 2021 I meant. Okay, you got a number in your head?
Yeah.
Right. Let's go. 3, 2, 1.
60.
78. What did you go for?
I said 60. I'm banking on it. I figured I would kind of make a bold move, and we'll see whether or not it pays off. But yeah.
I went for 78, which means the crossover is 69.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, should
So
be.
yeah, ultimately, if it gets 80s or above, then you've just blown me out the water.
Yeah, I need it to stay in the 70s. Please stay in the 70s and we're good. But yeah.
70 or above, basically. You win. 60 or below, I win.
Yes, so 69 or below. Or 60, 68 or below, you win. So yes. Anyway, what are we reviewing next week, Michael?
Next week, well, we are obviously we're reviewing a film about a system that takes people in and tries to morph them into what they want them to be. I'm of course talking about secular liberal universities, because we will be looking at God's Not Dead. For Christmas.
Yes,
because he is born.
Yes, he is born again. So thank you for listening. We've been selecting and reflecting on The Matrix, one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. Not a fucking 7 out of 10 movie, one of the greatest. And join us next week for God's Not Dead, one of the greatest Christian movies of all time as well.
That's true.
Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye.